In 2001, a war between criminal organizations plays out on the streets of Liberty City. One of them is the struggle for influence in Portland, which takes place mainly between the Leones and the Chinese triad. At some point, Claude joins the ranks of the Leone family thanks to 8-Ball, who has just escaped from getting arrested once again. Claude, as an unofficial member of the Leone family, does a lot for the gang. He helps in the conflict of the Leones with the triad, or earns money for the organization. Over time, he even performs orders directly for Salvatore himself, who, due to his bad experience in Las Venturas in 1992, eventually decides to kill Claude, fearing that he will do the same as CJ did.
Listen, Salvatore thinks that we're going behind his back, so he was offering you to the cartel in order to make a deal. I couldn't let him do that. I mean, the worst thing is, it's all my fault because I told him we were an item. Don't ask me why, I don't know.
By the way, we'll leave you something about Claude's betrayal by Salvatore in the tab, in case you want to learn a little bit more about this topic. Back on topic, Claude is also introduced by Maria to Asuka Kassen, who is a Yakuza Shategashira. Suspiciously, Asuka quickly gets information on where Salvatore is going to be soon, and gives Claude a chance to get revenge on him, which occurs during the Sayonara Salvatore mission. In general, in the eyes of some players, the whole action had a much deeper bottom. The bottom, which is specifically related to the topic of this episode. Namely, some players were wondering where Asuka could have information about where and when exactly Salvatore Leone would be. Hence the theory that Toni Cipriani, after years of capo regime, wanted something more, namely, to become the head of this organization. Claude's betrayal by Salvatore and the subsequent work of the main character for the Yakuza was supposed to be the perfect opportunity for Toni, who, wanting to become the boss of the Mafia, allegedly set Salvatore up. However, this theory, in our opinion, is not true. Well, in 1998, during the events of GTA Liberty City Stories, Toni Cipriani had an interesting episode that eventually led to a serious conflict between the Leones and the Yakuza. The man met Toshiko Kassen, the wife of the then Wakagashira of the Yakuza, who was fed up with her husband and wanted to make his life as miserable as possible. And what's worth emphasizing, there was a great opportunity for this because Toni Cipriani had just started harming the Yakuza on behalf of his boss, Salvatore. You could say there was a pure symbiosis between Toshiko and Toni. Toni wanted to destroy the Yakuza, and Toshiko wanted to destroy her husband, who, after all, was an extremely important person for this Japanese organization. Tasks from Toshiko concerned, among other things, stealing weapons or destroying vans carrying money. Furthermore, Cipriani was eventually asked to assassinate Kazuki Kassen, and the Yakuza suffered severely as a result.
Toshiko, it's over now.
Yes, I knew that. Hello, Mr. Toni.
Hey, so, you won.
Since Toni Cipriani was not forgotten by the Yakuza, Salvatore's death was for Asuka Kassen to settle the scores from the past. And knowing that Toni Cipriani killed her brother, the woman would not make any deals with him. How do we know about it? Well, it's best seen in the example of Miguel, who was framed for the murder of Asuka's second brother, Kenji. Asuka, thinking that the Colombian cartel that Miguel ruled was behind Kenji's death, had no mercy for this man. Going back to the plot point after Salvatore's death, Claude has the opportunity to make several appearances in Mafia territory in Portland, where he discovers that the mafiosos are equipped with shotguns that can destroy a regular car with 2 shots. And it's a big surprise. The Leone family is better armed, which suggests a clear conclusion. The new head of the Mafia has started investing to increase the strength of this organization. The question is, who is the new boss? And since the beginning of the release of GTA 3, players have been presenting their theories on this issue on an ongoing basis. 2 characters from GTA 3 were most often focused on, Joey Leone and Toni Cipriani. Of course, it could very well have been some stranger Claude simply didn't know, but the odds of that are very slim. Regarding the first candidate, Joey, what immediately comes to mind is that Joey Leone is Salvatore's son. The 2 men are related by blood, so it's only natural that Joey should take over from his father, or at least that's what it would look like if the crime family sticks to tradition. The problem is that Joey doesn't seem to be a very respectable person in mafia circles. Joey has been running a workshop since at least 1992, which we know from the introduction, and what we said more about in the recently released video about CJ's adventures before the plot in GTA San Andreas, which, by the way, we also recommend you watch. As always, you'll find the episode in the tab. In turn, going back to the topic, the question is Joey's business lucrative? At first, we thought not so much. However, after taking a closer look at Joey's activities, we believe that his workshop is quite relevant in the context of work for the Leone Mafia. Considering that Joey's workshop was used for more than just legitimate business, a lot of shady activity could have passed through this place. One example of such activity was the sale of stolen cars, as we learned from the introduction. In addition, if the cars were not suitable for trade, they could be stripped down for parts. What's more, it's worth mentioning that Joey's activities may have been used for money laundering. Since it was a business related to the car trade, a lot of money was pouring through it. Therefore, it was the perfect front for money laundering from illegal sources. Moreover, the man regularly dates prostitutes, which is also not good for his PR. While it's kind of understandable that he might find it fun, we suspect that Don's son of the mob should be expected to behave at a higher level. It is known that gangsters use the services of prostitutes, but it was rather occasionally. Most mobsters prefer to settle down and start a family. This is partly what makes Joey Leone not possible to be taken seriously. The question is, wasn't the man doing it for disguise, so as not to draw too much attention to himself? Perhaps because the same dilemma also faces the LCPD services, which have had Joey under constant surveillance for some time, as we learned from an article in the Liberty Tree newspaper, which appeared in July of 2001. In the publication, law enforcement officials point out that Joey is a contender to take Don's place after his father. And it's also worth mentioning that Joey had side ways to support the Leone family. After all, the man helped organize various heists, which we witnessed in the missions Van Heist and The Getaway. In the meantime, let's move on to Toni Cipriani, who has more followers when it comes to his chances of becoming Leone's new mafia boss. Toni Cipriani has a great relationship with Salvatore Leone. The man had shown great potential years earlier, eagerly waiting to be recruited into the Leone Mafia, which finally happened, and what we witnessed in the Making Toni mission.
Toni, my boy, today's the day you're being made.
Oh, Salvatore, I'm Mr. Leone. Our mom has been waiting for this day.
After all, Toni had somehow become Don Leone's blue-eyed boy. Of course, not without reason, because as we found out in GTA Liberty City stories, Toni was able to cope well with even the toughest tasks. Interestingly, before the events of GTA Liberty City stories, Toni was probably ordered by Salvatore to get rid of an important member of the enemy mafia, which forced him to leave the country for some time. Unfortunately, upon returning to Liberty City, he had a sad surprise. Salvatore forgot all Toni's merits and left him in the care of Vincenzo Chili, who was a newly minted capo regime.
Mr. Leone, I thought we got history. I mean, I've done a lot for this family. And now you're expecting me to take orders from this...
Therefore, Toni Cipriani had to gain Salvatore's trust again, which lasted throughout GTA Liberty City stories. Toni had rescued Sal from really bad situations many times. In addition, at Toni's initiative, the Leone family cracked down on rival mafia families in Liberty City, to the point that the Sindacos and Forellis disappear from the map for good. Toni's help is reflected in the political arena, as Cipriani saves the then mayor of the city, Miles O'Donovan, who is thus obliged to act as Salvatore wants. Like Joey Leone, Toni Cipriani also has his own business, an Italian thriving restaurant in St. Mark's that has been proclaimed one of the best in Liberty City, as we know from the Mama's Restaurant ad. Moreover, Toni Cipriani shows that he cares about this criminal organization. While Joey Leone began to get involved with the Forelli brothers, who are no longer a real threat, Toni Cipriani was reacting to current problems, such as the fact that some local businesses would not pay the protection money. Going further, the final argument for Toni Cipriani taking over the Leones is an article published in the Liberty Tree newspaper in early April 2001. This is about the scandal with Salvatore Leone, who was found to have $450,000 of undeclared income, which allegedly came from extortion. Interestingly, Salvatore managed to avoid criminal liability for paying a superficial fine, as well as the income not included in the declaration. The man managed to convince the jury with a rather unusual explanation. Sal said the money was not generated through extortion, but the illegal import of tomato sauce from his hometown in Sicily. Why do we think this is important? Well, because in another Liberty Tree article, this time from July 2001, Toni Cipriani openly stated that he has nothing in common with Salvatore except that he buys tomato sauce from him. Toni Cipriani unwittingly admits here that Salvatore partly invests in his restaurant, which, as we mentioned earlier, is a very good place for money laundering. The fact that Don himself explains his undeclared income to Toni may imply that the man trusts him more, and therefore may mean that Salvatore unwittingly favors Toni. And besides, the prosecutor believed that the proceeds were really from extortion. And who in the Leone family dealt with extortion? Exactly, Toni Cipriani. We can see some interesting connections here, which indicate that Toni Cipriani plays a damn important role in the Leones. To sum up today's episode, we believe that Toni Cipriani took power in the Leone Mafia after Salvatore's death. The man was by far the better candidate for the position. He has served the Leones many times, often taking on tasks in which he risked his own life. In addition, it is noticeable from many different sources that Toni was treated with more respect by Salvatore. And although Joey Leone should theoretically become Don because he is Salvatore's son, the merits of the man have nothing to do with what Toni did for the Leone crime family. If Joey sat on the proverbial throne, it could lead to family members feeling like the mafia doesn't have a real flesh and blood boss who would do anything to keep the organization at the top. Every criminal group should have a strong leader who has done a lot for the gang in the past and is highly respected by the other members. Joey Leone, on the other hand, might seem like he was respected in GTA 3, but mostly because the members were afraid of the mighty Salvatore and didn't want to step on his toes in any way. Vote now in the community tab who you think has taken over the Leones and let us know if you agree with our opinion. Meanwhile, that would be all. We recommend you watch the 2 videos that are currently displayed on the screen. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video. Take care!